welcome to MPW. Come on in. Now I'm sure we've all woken up at some point in our lives and wondered what it would be like to have a school which has no students and no staff in it. Well, today that is actually a reality. So I'm going to take you on a very quiet tour around MPW and show you behind the magic. Now, the first place you'll come to when you come to MPW is into the Nerve Centre, right here in reception, where you'll be greeted by several warm, smiling faces, offered a tea, a coffee, a chance to fill in a form, and then to meet one of our staff. Right, now the first thing you need, because this is a school, is a bit of a geography lesson and a bit of a history lesson. So, to give you a sense of place, we are in South Kensington in London. Your three principal landmarks to try and grab hold of at this point would be Hyde Park, the Natural History Museum, and for those shoppers out there, Harrods. The history side of it, 1973. Picture the scene in the front room of Messrs. Mander, Portman and Woodward's houses. They founded the college as we now have it today, albeit on a much smaller scale. It was specifically designed to offer tutorials to those looking to get into university, and we've still replicated that model into how we do it today, but with more students. Our principal campus here in South Kensington has three of these townhouses, numbers 90, 91 and 92. They've all been knocked through at various points, so we can actually make this a more convenient tour for you. But the one abiding feature to these buildings, and the health warning I'll give you before we set off, is that there is an awful lot of stairs. On the first floor of each of our buildings, we have three of these libraries. This is our first, which is actually normally a group study library. Only just before the buildings went into lockdown, we were in the middle of a test period, the mock period itself. But usually you have groups of desks where students will come in and do group-based project work. In the next library across, that is where we have our silent library. And that is, again, replicating this style where we do all the testing, the EPs, these extended practice sessions that we like to do, which is just another generous way of saying regular mock testing. But we do it all so that you get familiar with the actual environment that you'll be doing the exams in later on. And we also have an internet library that we're going to see in a bit. There is one thing I want to show you, which is a bit of a feature to MPW. In these grand old houses that used to be here, you always find little rooms off in different places, and you get a bit of a sense as to what these rooms used to be. This would have been a grand old living room, and if you look up towards the ceiling, you can still see the original features in place. But over at the back of the building would have been the old servants' quarters, which we've now converted into classrooms. Politics as a class is there for those who like to be able to balance arguments. But the MPW structure and the way that this would work, particularly for politics, but for any subject, is about being around the table, about having this discussion. Okay? We have no back rows, we have no hiding. You cannot drift off and be looking out the window. You cannot fall asleep. You are here to be part of the discussion. When we are interviewing students, we are looking for those who are going to be able to contribute to classes. It's also worthwhile bearing in mind at this very moment in time that the formal address between staff and students is essentially eroded when you come into a college. It's more university-like in the sense that now we're on a first name basis. We get to know you, you get to know us, and that way as a school we find it is a more constructive and slightly more adult way of learning. So, up the old servant staircase, we're going to start our Everest-like ascent up the buildings. And I can show you a little bit more about what we actually have to offer. On the second floor of each of our buildings is essentially the offices and the staff rooms. Now, one room all students at MPW London are going to get to know very well is this one here, which is the Director of Studies room. Now, a Director of Studies is essentially a personal tutor. They are there for your pastoral care, for the welfare of all the students, but they are also UCAS and careers guidance counsellors by trade and training. So they're the people to inspire you, to give you ideas, to show you what's on offer, and then to help you achieve your goals. The other classroom to show you on this particular floor is a class for the 21st century that is becoming more and more popular. It's the Computing and ICT room. Now, I lied to you before and I apologise deeply, but we do have one classroom that has a back row in it, and it is this one by sheer necessity of how an ICT classroom should be laid out. But we still only have the maximum number of students that we can fit into a class. For all of our other subjects, it is a maximum of 9, but for ICT, as you can see, it is a maximum number of 8. Now, I'm no chemist, but this is our chemistry lab. On the 3rd floor of each of our buildings, we have 2 chemistry, 2 biology, and 2 physics labs. Again, the same structure that we were talking about before, and every bit of equipment that you might possibly need, albeit in a slightly smaller space. Come with me, I'll show you the biology lab, and you can see whether you can spot the difference. Well, I don't need these in here, but what you can see is that our biology lab is roughly the same as our chemistry lab, albeit with slightly different equipment. And this guy, of course. But on a more serious note, one thing that you do need to know about MPW is that we invest an awful lot of time into our medics, our dentists, and our vets. We have a medic program that caters for all of them, run by both myself and the head of science here, and fully supported by the science department. We on average have about 25, 26 medics, dentists and vets that come through here every single year, and our pass-out rate for that is almost second to none. And now we have reached the halfway point, the very top of our buildings. And if you're at the very top, you generally tend to find you're doing a subject that doesn't require its own specialist equipment or materials. And these are subjects like geography or economics or maybe a history-based subject. If you generally tend to find you're at the very top of the building, you're more than likely to be amongst our fittest of the student body. But come into the economics room, because there are a few things I want to show you. The first of which is we have these little individual offices off to the side, and that's because outside of class time, one of the defining features of the way we like to teach is we offer surgeries outside. Learning is only ever half defined by what happens in the classroom anyway, or at least that is the way we like to see it. We also believe it is our responsibility outside the class to be able to offer extra help if a student needs it, and we generally tend to do that in these individual offices. It's almost like going to see an educational doctor, albeit in this sense it's the head of department or a senior tutor or someone like that. Have a look at this though. Have a look out the window at the moment. This is the other thing you've got to learn to love about London, is being able to see the rooftops, seeing the different styles of architecture, and on a day like today where the sun is shining and no people are out, you do get a sense of a different world. Bonjour, buongiorno, ciao, privet, and all the other ways of saying hello and welcome to the language laboratory. There's one thing that I've come to know after 14 years of doing this, which is that there's a great crime in the English system of people not knowing many languages, despite our great encouragement for them to do so. If you know languages, you are more attractive not only to employers in the future, but before that to universities. You have something that quite a lot of other students have already dropped much earlier than A-level and sometimes much earlier than GCSE. But we do offer a wide variety of languages. We offer the modern foreign languages of French, German, Spanish, Italian within there. We also offer Russian, Chinese, and on occasions we've also been known to do more individual languages, possibly like Greek or Arabic, should we be required to do so. What MPW does, and this is not necessarily unique to us, but certainly something that we are available to do, is offer 43 different A-level subjects. And you can take them in any combination, provided that it makes sense. There was a great bit of press not long ago about the fact that nowadays the Russell Group are not quite as fixed on this idea of facilitating subjects as they used to have. So what we try and encourage students generally to do is to take subjects that reflect them. We would want to encourage them to make sure they are balanced, that they make sense for the future, and that is always the position we start from, but also that they are taking subjects that they are necessarily going to enjoy. One other thing before we go down to see some of these more creative rooms is I want to show you on the first floor of 92 building, the Internet Library. Now, I don't know if you've noticed as we've been going around, but we've had some rather wonderful artwork on each and every one of our walls. And one of the last things I want to champion on this tour is, in fact, our arts department, which is large, vast, and desperately creative. But all this work on the walls is student-based work, and it's reflective of our student body. And we have some incredible artists who come through here. We also have very rare opportunities for them to be able to exhibit their work. Not only every year do we turn these very buildings into an art gallery and invite an audience in to come and have a look at it, we also have opportunities for students to exhibit their work in the local area, and on several occasions have had student-based work in the Saatchi Gallery itself around the corner. This is our principal art studio. One of our larger rooms. It's certainly one of our brighter rooms if you look at the cupboards, but then again this is an art room, and you have to forgive slightly the mess that you find in any art classroom, but if there were ever any subject that were allowed to be in a mess, it is the art department itself. Who knows, it may even be modern art. 92 basement, our arts facilities continue. We have a digital photography suite, and over in 90 basement we actually have the darkroom facility as well for that more archaic form of photography. And as we pass them, just so I can point these out, these colourful boxes we have here, these are lockers, these American high school lockers that each and every student can have in order to be able to leave work at the door and return and get it the next day. We also have a film room, a cinema room here in the basement. The cinema room is here for those students who are doing film studies, but we also run a film club down here in the basement. This is our ceramics studio. If you come through this way, take you into our textiles room, but via the back door that students are never normally allowed to use. And into textiles we go. Textiles, fashion in textiles is a subject that is not only very much on the rise, but one of our most popular subjects nowadays. So this is the student common room. This is the place where we are not usually allowed. This is the student space. This is where they come to relax, to talk, to chat, to socialise, to interact, and to play pool. Nothing changes though. I mean, I still can't get anyone to challenge me to play pool. There's no one here. So instead, why don't I invite you for a coffee? Why don't we leave the young to it and you come through, and what we don't have a canteen, but we do have a coffee shop that's down here. What can I get for, oh sorry, no, in fact, the coffee shop now is in fact closed, but what it does do is it does a very good coffee, it does a very good cup of tea, it does very good sandwiches. Coco has different options, different food options that you can be looking at every day, whether it's going to be breakfast, whether it's going to be lunch. She has daily specials, we have vending machines, but what you'll find is that South Kensington and Gloucester Road have very much a cafe culture to it, and it is a defining feature of the college as well, as the students like to go out and grab a coffee in the local area, maybe do their work there. And of course we do have other buildings that I cannot show you today that equally have coffee-based facilities. So some students bring in lunch, some students have lunch here, some students eat lunch out. The choice is yours. Now hopefully you never get called to the principal's office, and the only time you're ever there really is when you actually have one of your initial interviews for the college. But in 90 ground floor corridor, it starts with the principal's office and comes past our sports notice board here. And I do want to point this out purely because I can't actually show you our fabulous outdoor facilities at this moment in time, partly because we don't have a blade of grass around us and they're not on our door, and obviously the other part being the state of the world at the moment. But we do have an awful lot of extracurricular activities that you can do. We have the competitive team-based sports, and we have the more individual-based sports as well. So you might want to play rugby, you might want to play football, you might want to actually play golf or squash or whatever that might be, but we have facility to be able to do that. We generally use South West London for what it is there for, which is for the wide open spaces and numerous facilities that are available. The only other thing that I'd like to point out, and equally I cannot show you today, is we do have a facility share with Imperial College University at the top of the road, and there we have use of their gym. Their state-of-the-art gym, their health suite, their swimming pool, their climbing wall, their squash courts, etc. And that is all for free for students to use as well, and should be used by students too, as it gives them a sense of downtime outside of their studies, and indeed makes for a more constructive use of the day. And we're back at the very beginning. We're back to where you first started your experience at MPW. I hope I've given you some sense of it. I hope it has not been too strange having a very ghost-like feel to MPW behind the magic. But one thing I do want to show you, just with a thought before we leave, is this bookshelf here, because it rather encapsulates the other things that we do here. We write these guides, for example, and these are actually incredibly useful, not only for our students, but for students outside the college too. They're instructional guides on various different courses, and whether that might be medicine, or Oxbridge, or law, or art schools, or what have you, they're all written by our Director of Studies here, by our pastoral team, and each and every person will have a specialism of their own. They're designed as instructional guides, not only about what sort of things you would be thinking about in this profession, but also how you go about getting into it. So they're a very good place to start. When you come for an interview at MPW, we will then also leave you with our course outlines. We'll give you a copy of our Imprint magazine here. Imprint is the college newsletter that you can have a little look through. The enrichment program, just to back up what we were saying before in terms of all the different sporting and non-sporting activities you can do, because we didn't even talk about debating or Duke of Edinburgh or Model United Nations or all the other many things you can do. And on that list, we're currently numbering about 39 different options. My one advice to anyone coming here is your experience will be defined by what you make of it. We will give you the basics, we will give you the academics, we will give you the education that you are looking for, but over and above that, it's for us to lay out opportunities in front of you, to guide you towards them, and then allow you to make choices, adult choices for yourself, just with a huge safety net underneath, and that is often your personal tutor. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you now can go out and enjoy some sun, whether that's going to be sticking your head out the window or going out into your own backyard. And at some point, when these doors throw themselves open again, I hope that we can actually welcome you to MPW, get you to come on in, see the place for itself, and actually meet someone other than just myself.